prospecting is not important to your business. It literally is the business. Like if you're slightly tired when you get on the phone or not focused or distracted, that costs you tens of thousands of dollars. Everything that you do costs you money. Yeah, if you do things right and treat one person the right way, it can be monumental.
So guys, we have the one and only Dan Mumm, Vegas agent here. He has blessed us with his presence of going to talk about a lot of different things: mindset, his schedule, what he's working on now, just everything to help you guys obviously, get more business and earn what you guys are looking to earn. And Dan, if you want to tell the group a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been in the business for, things like that, that will get us into the right frame of mind for the call.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate the intro and speaking to you guys. I'm sure it'll be great. So I'm in my 8th year in the business. My name's Dan. I'm here in Las Vegas. I got really lucky in the beginning because I met Paulie, who you know, of course, and he got me kind of on the right track and learning the right habits from the beginning. So I was really, really lucky in that regard. Started 8 years ago, did pretty well my first year. I think I did 23 or like 27 deals, but they were like investor deals, low price point, very low commission. I basically made no money. I made like 50 grand doing 21 deals my first year, whatever it was. But I did a lot and I learned and grew and got a lot of experience pretty quickly. And then, just pretty much grew from there. I've been involved in Mike Ferry coaching pretty much from the beginning. I started that my first year, and then take that to last year. I closed 109 sides, have a pretty small team, 1 buyer's agent and 2 staff, kind of more than 2 staff technically, because now I have a virtual assistant and I also hired a full-time courier service. So it's like 2.5, I guess. And then, that's pretty much it. This year, I'm on track to do about the same, but more income. I'm on track to do about 1.25. I think you put that in your thing, which is bad and good. It's good because I'm making more money doing less deals, but I want the transaction count to be higher too. So for now, that's my focus. And I've looked a lot on that. Like, do I want more income or higher transactions? And I think both are important. So that's my goal this year, is to do about the same number, about 110 deals, and earn significantly more. If I do that, I'll earn probably around 1.6.
Nice. That's incredible. So one of the first questions that I have is really around your mindset. So, obviously you have like a meteoric rise, let's say, in this business compared to where you came from and everything. And you're still, how old are you now?
33.
33, right? So for everyone listening, obviously he's obviously doing something right to get to the level of volume that he's doing, and also to level of income. So what would you say, like one of the top 3 things around the mindset that you've learned over the course of the last 8 years being in the business? And let's say even transition from like where you started to where you are today, what has been the biggest like aha that you realized maybe something that was true that turned out not to be true, and vice versa?
Yeah, that's a lot of good questions all rolled into one. One thing that you mentioned to me earlier was like speaking to the importance of prospecting. And I thought that was funny because one thing that I did well from the beginning that did kind of just come naturally to me was understanding that prospecting is not important to your business. It literally is the business. Like, that is the business. That's what I do. And that's what I get paid for, is doing that. I understood the importance of that pretty much right from the get-go. Now that's changed over the years. Like, my understanding of prospecting, I used to think of prospecting as basically only cold calling. And that was kind of a mistake. And that probably held me back for a while. And I see a lot of newer agents make that same mistake, where they think prospecting is just like calling random strangers out of a phone book or off a just sold list. And it's really not. Like, if you think about it, one good quality contact to a current client where you ask for introductions, or one good quality contact to you, Dean, for me as someone who's generously introduced me to like numerous people, that's probably worth like 1,000 cold calls, So like, that's kind of something that's changed over the course of the 8 years, is learning like being more effective in it and understanding what types of prospecting is more effective and what's more worth my time and what's a higher dollar per hour activity. But overall, that's been the mindset that's benefited me the most.
Awesome, man. That's fantastic. Rich, you have a couple more questions. I know you wanted to answer or get asked.
Yeah. So everybody's all stuck up on prospecting, right? And everybody in this phone wars, obviously what we do is we prospect day in and day out, right? So what would you say is getting you out of the office to get onto your appointments, in terms of sources, in terms of the opportunities that you're putting in front of yourself? Like, how are you able to get out of the office and be able to get on your appointments, to get onto one qualified appointment a day? Or are they not qualified appointments a day and you're just showing up on, let's call it, previews for FSBOs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I know we've talked about that before. So just like setting that up, one of the best changes I made in my business, I think, was making that change where I committed to getting out of the office by 11 or 12 at the latest and getting face-to-face every single day. What I did before that was I would just linger around in the office and just kind of like bullshit around. Like if I didn't get all my prospecting done, it would just bleed over into the later hours, and it led to me just being really inefficient. So one thing that my coach did was told me like, hey, get out of the office every day at the same time. And then I asked him the same question you just asked me, like, okay, well, what do I do if I don't have an appointment? Like, what do I go on an unqualified appointment? What do I do? I think the first answer is it's a mindset. If you commit to doing it first, the appointments tend to find themselves later. Like once you get in that habit. Yeah, in the beginning, you're probably not going to have a full pipeline of appointments every day. But eventually, when you start setting that up and you get in that habit, you'll find that the appointments will just start falling into place because now you're looking for it. Now, when I'm prospecting every morning, I'm thinking in my head subconsciously, like, yeah, I need to find an appointment because every single day I'm going to go on one, So I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but it is more of a mindset thing that I think that's like the first answer is it sets your mindset and your expectations to be proper when you're prospecting. And then, yeah, if you don't have an appointment, I mean, we're lucky in Vegas that we get a good amount of for sale by owners. So if I can't get a good qualified appointment, I can almost always get an appointment with one of them. Is that a fully pre-qualified bona fide listing appointment? No, it sometimes can be, usually not though. And then, if I don't get either for sale by owner or a qualified listing appointment, then I would go to a current client, past client, drop in, try and get to some kind of networking event, try and do something out of the office, talk to a neighbor, talk to someone in my neighborhood, door knock an expired listing or something like that, just to get out.
And you had 2 consecutive months back to back, if I recall, it was June and July or May and June, where you took 16 listings each month that I saw. So congrats to you being able to achieve and get 16 clients to be able to sign up. So in order those 16 clients that you got, what were the sources? What are your main sources where you're able to get these opportunities and at bats from?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. It was 16 and 15. I don't want to exaggerate. I think it was June and May were the 2 months, 16 and 15. Yeah, I think adding lead sources is important, especially in a down market. I think in an up market, from what I found, you kind of want to maybe double down on the ones that work the best. And what I found in like a down or level market, like most of us are probably in now, adding lead sources makes sense. So that's just to answer your question first. I made a conscious effort to start adding more lead sources to try and accomplish that. So the overall mix, it's mostly database, like half is database. And for me, that means either a past client or a center of influence. A good mix of agent referrals in there too. So that was a small part of it. Expired listings are a big part of it. For sale by owners are a big part of it. For rent by owners, I did a good amount of those. We've talked about that. That's been a really good lead source for me. I set up like a rental farm. That's something I coined the term for, which is basically like, so you guys know all the people that wanted to sell. Let's say someone bought a house last year, like at the top of the market, right? Now they want to sell it. And in some of our markets, they're losing money. So they don't want to do that. So, and they have low interest rates that they don't want to get rid of. So all those people are renting their houses out, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is a lot of them don't have experience managing properties, or they don't have a manager and they're trying to do it on their own. So anytime I came across someone like that, I tagged them in my database as rental farm. And basically what that means to me is I'm going to call them every 90 days just to check in, because I know eventually they're going to have an eviction or air conditioning unit's going to go out and they're going to be like, fuck this. I don't want to deal with this. I don't have the experience.
Absolutely.
So that was a good source. And I'm sure you guys are doing something pretty similar to that. Online reviews have been a really good source. Google reviews specifically have brought in business. Building out our profiles online to just attract business because of the volume that we're doing. There's some websites that try and connect sellers to agents that sell in high volume to try and get them to experienced agents, and they take a fee for that, obviously, like Homelight, Effective Agents. I wasn't using that at all before, but now we are, because I'm just using an asset that I already have, which is the volume of sales that I have, and they're marketing it for me.
Yeah.
So that's another source. It's a combination of all of that.
And every day, I'm assuming you want to do this at a high level, right? You never have down moments where you're like, hey, listen, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to get out of bed today. So let's walk us through your schedule of a millionaire mindset that gets you ready, gets you energized. And then, most importantly, what I notice about you, which is always, I've never not seen you in a suit, regardless of whenever I've seen you, always been in a suit. So do you contribute to dressing for success as well, to be part of your overall success?
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge part of it. That goes back to what I said earlier, that when you're dressing as if you're going to go on a listing appointment, you kind of just start finding listing appointments because you're expecting that to happen. if I dress wearing a short and t-shirts every day and, not really caring, then it's like another impediment to me going. I don't want any impediments for me to go on an appointment. I want to reduce that down to zero. I don't want any reason for me to not go on an appointment. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. First question's a good question. And yeah, I know there's definitely days I don't want to. Yesterday was one of those days. I got barely any sleep. I don't know why. And I felt exhausted and just felt like shit, but I'm in a prospecting group just like you guys. And I have to, no matter what. It's like my job, So
Yeah.
I think that's when you really unlock your higher levels, when you're doing it, when you don't feel like doing it. And I think having a group environment is probably the best thing for that, to be honest. I don't know what else can really keep you on those days when you don't feel like doing it. And I think the last thing I would say is I view what we do as like a professional athlete. You guys probably have heard that analogy before too, but like if you were training for the Olympics, how would you treat yourself? Like if you were the Tom Brady of your franchise, which we all are, and you were the owner of that and you had a Tom Brady, you would make sure that Tom has all the right nutrition, the best sleep in the world. Like you would treat him like gold because that guy is, driving the success of your organization, and we're that for ourselves. So we should do it the same way. So yeah, I mean, if you're slightly tired when you get on the phone or not focused or distracted, that costs you tens of thousands of dollars. It's just people don't really see it that way,
Absolutely. And what do you think that was that big change, that aha moment for you to be like, this is how it has to be, for you to be able to go from, the average agent, 15 transactions a year to just even double the production? Like, what was that aha moment for you to scale at a tremendous amount of time within 8 years?
It's probably not one exact moment. It's obviously like an evolution, but I think one thing was probably two moments. One was hiring an assistant for the first time. That's a pretty big commitment, hiring a full-time person, because when you make that commitment, I mean, most of you guys probably have one, so but when you make that commitment, you're forcing yourself to produce now. A lot of agents are afraid to make the commitment, and that's why their production stays low, because they have no reason to produce more. And then you get the added benefit of all your time back, obviously. And that's one strength. I mean, I have a lot of weaknesses, but that's one strength that I had, was I did that pretty early. And then I hired a second assistant pretty early. Another moment for me was probably when I first went to Darren Hardy's business masterclass, and he kind of changed my mindset on viewing my customer service as a source of business. Not only a source of business, but literally the best source of business. And one thing that I learned from that kind of changed my mindset forever was, he said, everything that you do costs you money. Even if you think by prospecting, you're not, spending money to get those leads, you still are, because you're trading your time for the leads. And that's actually the most expensive, because our time is the most expensive, thing that we're paying for every day. So when I realized that using customer service as a source of business is the least expensive and the most profitable way to get new business. And that kind of changed my attitude towards clients, and instead of seeing them as a nuisance, seeing them as a huge lucrative source of business,
Dan, can you go deeper on that? What do you mean by that exactly? Service.
Yeah, I mean, if you work a current client well, one relationship can mean hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Just changing the mindset from a commission-based mindset to a long-term lifetime value mindset. Every customer, if you treat them right, especially the ones that are good operative centers of influences, can be worth 6 to 7 figures. I can name probably a few. And a good relationship, Dean, is like our relationship. You've been someone like that for me because of the introductions that you made. So yeah, if you do things right and treat one person the right way, it can be monumental. And so in the past, I made a lot of mistakes where I let the commission get in the way, and maybe I got frustrated by the way a deal went, and I had to spend a little bit more money, and I could have made some decisions to protect the lifetime value of the customer, but I didn't. And I probably burned those relationships, or maybe just didn't foster them the way I could. And that really cost me,
And do you think that being one-on-one with Mike Ferry and making that leap of faith, did that change anything, or was that all internal for you?
Yeah, it did. Definitely changed a lot. It was a hard decision when I made it. I think I talked to you guys, but that's right when I was about to close my house. Yeah. So I've been saving for this house for 2.5 years. And so, we're like a week out of closing. I had to fork over $50,000. Wasn't easy, but, I'd say the biggest thing with him is just keeping the business simple. I think the more complicated we make it, the less productive we become. We just talked about the same thing every single day. Like, what does your appointment schedule look like this week? How many listings have you taken this week? What are you going to do next week? And people say that as a criticism of Mike, like, oh, it's the same stuff over and over again. But that's actually, in my opinion, it's not a criticism. It's the entire benefit is keeping your business simple and just focusing on listings. That's basically it.
And I think one thing that you did share with me, Dan, if I can share this here with everybody, is that, I asked you, like, well, what is the one difference that you've gotten from him directly? Right, because it's obviously on the stage, he's talking to the masses as opposed to you individually, and that was one of the things that I asked you, and you said something along the lines of like, well, everything he talks about on stage, just times that by 10 in terms of intensity. Mm-hmm. And is that what that's basically what you were saying, right?
Yeah, and it's very focused and very question based. And actually, one thing that I've learned from him too is to be more coachable. He's the type of guy that you, and I'm sure most people on this call either have some kind of coach or someone that they're learning from. I know I learned really quickly if I didn't come prepared with a question when Mike called me, he was disappointed in me. Like, you could tell he was not happy with me. So, and it's tough when he's calling you every day. It's like, fuck, I got to come up with a question every single day. So my whole day now I'm thinking about like what I'm going to ask him and how I can improve and what's going to help drive the business forward. So learning to be more coachable is something I learned with him, and actually applying what he's telling me to do and like reporting back to him. Hey, you told me to do this. I did this. This is what happened. Do we need to change it? Do we need to adjust it? I think most people are going through coaching or training as kind of like a passive exercise. I've done that before where you're kind of just like, oh, well, hopefully it marinates on my mind and causes me to change things. It's like, that doesn't work,
Nice.
Absolutely. And Dean, I know we're getting closer to the end. Do you mind if I switch gears a little bit, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about this for a second.
That's what I'm going to talk about, the book.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys know, Dan wrote a book, How to Sell Your Luxury Home. And so I've actually did a deep dive in it with a few chapters that I thought were interesting. Dan, one question that I had about the book was more about, who did you actually write that book for?
Yeah, the target client. Type of clients that I'm trying to reach.
Okay, because there were some chapters in there that I read, and I was like, I feel like you're talking to agents right here. It seemed like that. But the style of how it's very simple in terms of how it was written and everything. I'm just curious, like, it seems like I know you've gotten some business from it, obviously. That makes a lot of sense. So outside of that, were there some unintended consequences of the book that you've gotten, like, as a result of that from?
Yeah, it's one of the best time investments I ever made was writing the book. And it was real simple. All I did was, and this is something Mike talks about too, is just take all the objections you get from sellers, write out the answers, and give it to them in advance. That's basically what the book is. I just took all the common questions and objections that sellers have, and I answered them and I put them in the book. So we already know what the answers are. I needed to write it and incorporate some stories and make it a little bit, more thought out. But yeah, it just adds tons of credibility. What a book ends up doing, it's like an upgraded business card, and it just builds trust way faster. And so it's not a magic solution. It's not going to open doors magically that were closed before, but if I have a good conversation with someone, but I'm not able to secure an appointment, let's say for some reason, and I could tell that maybe they just don't know how credible I am, or they might have a few different agents that they talk to. When I send them the book, it just instantly changes the dynamic of the relationship. It builds trust so quickly. And then the other benefit of it is that it's like pouring gasoline on a fire for referrals. So if I give the book to someone that's referred me a lot of deals, now that person has an actual tool for referring me more deals. And it's a conversation starter, and you give it to past clients and they have it on their bookshelf, and it starts conversations with their friends and their family and all of that. And it helps get you in the door for certain situations, like for sale by owners. Use it for them too. Show up on the doorstep, have a good conversation with them. By the way, I wrote a book. I don't know if this will be helpful for you. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It really changes the way they see you.
Early on in the book, chapter 3, right? Learn about for owners, how to get to them.
Yeah. I wrote a book on that, or a chapter on the for sale by owner thing. So what I do is I write a handwritten note in the front, and then I'll say, hey, Mark chapter 3. I figured some of the tips in that chapter might be helpful for you, and I give it to them.
Nice.
Cool. And with the book, right? A lot of agents, especially here, and we talk to a lot of different agents, always asking, how to break in the luxury market. So can you share like like one or two tidbits throughout the book to make them want to, pick a copy up, read about it, but also just get some insightfulness of how to either raise their price points or is the luxury market even true, right? So
Yeah.
walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. I mean, we could have a long conversation on that. I would say to keep it short, one thing that I did that I think helps, and I see this people make the mistake a lot, is from a marketing perspective, as a real estate agent, you have to plant your flag somewhere. You can't be everything to everyone. You can't be the buyer's agent, the renter agent, the property manager, the luxury agent, the first time buyer agent. You can't. You can, it's just not good from a marketing perspective, because what ends up happening is you're vanilla to everyone. So if people are going to know you for something, and you got to plant your flag somewhere. So if you have to plant it somewhere, I'd rather plant it in the spot where I want to be. That's why I made the book about selling luxury homes and not just about selling any home, because I want someone who owns a luxury home to specifically see value in that. And it's going to attract them more than if it was just about how to sell a generic home, if that makes sense. So I hear that pushback a lot from agents, like, oh, well, I don't want someone who, owns a regular home to think that I can't help them. Newsflash, that's going to happen no matter what. Like, people are going to, not think that you apply to them no matter where you put your flag down. So you want to choose the category that you want to attract the most. It's going to help you get more of what you want. And so does that mean you lose a few? Yeah, you probably will lose a few, but you're going to gain the ones that you want to gain. So that's kind of the idea. And that helped me with doing more high-end deals, which I've done the past year, was just marketing myself in that way and just, seeking those people out specifically. I also just stopped calling people below 500,000. The way I saw it was like, if I'm going to spend my time prospecting, why would I call people that I'd rather not? Like, there's more, at least in my market, there's more than enough expired listings, let's say, for above 500,000. Why would I not just call those people? And it's like, oh, well, you want to get more. It's like, well, I could just go further with the higher ones. I could try and make more contact attempts. I could try and hit them multiple times a day. I want to try and take the sniper rifle approach rather than a shotgun approach. I think we've talked about that, Rich, a couple of times. So I think that's kind of helpful. As far as, I think that basically answered the question. Do you have a follow-up on that?
Can you share, I think you were telling, was it Dean and Rich and Tomas, about what you've done in your neighborhood? I think you said you've kind of infiltrated your neighborhood. You've done some community events, and can you kind of speak to how you?
Yeah, I bought a new house purely just for my real estate business, which I told you guys. So I bought it in a house in a pretty expensive neighborhood that I wasn't comfortable buying in at first. And my goal was to make all of the money back on the house in commissions, which I've basically already done now. And so as soon as I moved in, I just looked at it as a full-on marketing campaign. I bought the house. We knocked on all the doors in the neighborhood, introduced ourselves to basically everyone on like the few streets around us. I called the entire neighborhood twice. I send out a mailer every 60 days that goes out to the entire neighborhood that says, hey, I live here. If you want specific knowledge from someone who sells a lot of homes in this neighborhood. And then events, we did a housewarming party. Then we did like a progressive dinner event where we did dinner at one house, or we did like the entrees at one house, the desserts at one house, and the appetizers at one house. We just did that recently. And yeah, we've done 2 deals so far. I've only been in the house for a short time. We've done 2 deals in the neighborhood, and these are higher end deals. So it's been a really good source of business for us.
That's good. I think events is where it's at. I've been sending out mailers to my neighborhood for probably like a year and a half, and I've gotten 2 listings from it, but it takes a while, I feel like, to really, get people to start seeing your name and remembering you. So I think events, just doing things like that, is huge.
Yep.
Price point.
Well, we did have a question about the book. So from Lori Fowler in Naples, she had asked, also in a luxury market, what is basically the cost of the book to write besides time? Yeah,
time's your biggest cost, as you know, Lori. But the cost was not much. It's crazy to think about how much I've made off the book versus how much it costs. It probably all in was around $3,000, $3,500 for the ghostwriter. And so, I basically, the ghostwriter will ask you questions and you answer the questions, and they put it into a story arc that kind of makes sense. And just so you know, these are still author copies. I'm still revising it. There's still typos and everything in there, but I just wanted to start distributing it and getting it out there. And most people don't, you guys read the book. Most clients don't even read it. It's just like a business card, But yeah, I would say it took about a year, and it wasn't, you could do it a lot faster than that if you just focused on it, but I'd say all in is around $3,000.
Nice.
Great.
Nice. And then we have another question from Jeff Anderson, who's my sales manager on my team. But anyway, he's coming from a different place, but I want to get his question answered. He said, pretend I'm an agent on your team, Dan. He said, what are my day-to-day deliverables and expectations that you would have of them?
Yeah, I'm probably the worst person to ask that to, because I'm not a big team guy. I'm really lucky that I have one buyer's agent who's really, really good and strong and phenomenal. So honestly, I just kind of give her the reins, and I do 0 buyer deals. So I give her everything. I'd say that's one thing that's good is like I used to have buyer's agents, but I would still cherry pick. I would keep some of the deals and give them some of the deals. And for us, that didn't really work out well. I think they see that, and it's kind of like a morale killer for them sometimes too. And I get it. You might need to do that in certain team structures because you're not going to give a brand new agent your best stuff, right? But if you can get to that point where you can really just offload all of it and focus on what makes you the most money, I think that makes sense. So, yeah, to be honest, I don't have an answer to any of that. What was the question? Deliverables and expectations?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess also maybe more pinpoint on that. Like if you were to run a team, if someone were to join your team and they say, okay, Dan, I want to know everything, like what you know, what you're like, what you have going on, like, but like, just tell me exactly what I would need to do. What is your expectation of that agent? And again, there's agents here in the group that are listening to be like, well, I wonder what Dan's expectation of what a really good agent is, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, got it. So if they were on my team, then the minimum would be 25 deals a year. And if they didn't hit that, I would just cut them. That's why I got rid of most of my teams, because they did less than that. Last year I had 3 buyers agents. Now I have 1. So at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing. If you're working under a highly productive agent and you can't do 25 deals, it's like, there's something off there. And if they were wanting to take listings, they would need to be prospecting every single day next to me. That's what my listing agent did, at least 2 hours a day. And they would need to role play and practice every day, 30 minutes. That's what I do. I practice more now than I ever have in my career, really.
Yeah, awesome. Chris Nugent. So he had said his question is, how much time do you spend on each source prospecting?
Yeah, I'll take you through like my prospecting routine. I do the same thing every day. So expireds first, withdrawals, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, lead follow-up. And that's the end of like my cold session. I have a cold session and a warm session. I split it up because I feel like your mindset is kind of different for like the cold session versus the warm. And I want to kind of like, it just is a natural break. So that's the cold session. That takes about an hour and a half. The warm session is 10 past clients, 3 centers of influence, ask for 2 reviews, 3 current clients. And then I go to birthdays. So I check on Facebook to see whose birthday it is and I call them. What's interesting about that is like, people always tell me no one calls me on like, even their mom didn't call them. They just texted them and I'm the one who calls them. So it makes a big impact. And then awesome. After that, I do my anniversary. So like if someone sold a house with me a year ago, I'll check and see like from last year. I just go to my Zillow profile and see who sold about a year ago. That's one thing that's worked well for me, is starting to pay attention to dates, because that shows that you really care about people and you're paying attention. Like, if you call on their anniversary or on their actual like wedding anniversary or a birthday, that really shows that you're interested in them, you know, and that's it. So that's the total. That the whole thing takes 3 hours. It's like an hour and a half for the cold stuff, an hour and a half for the warm stuff usually.
Thanks, Dan. I'm sorry. Can I ask one quick quick question there? I appreciate you being on here. So let's just say I know everybody's doing a hot expire thing right now, and let me ask you, do you have like a certain strategy where you just say if there's 10 of them that came on, you call all 10, it takes you probably like maybe 10, 15 minutes. Do you go back on it, or what's your strategy in that?
Yeah, good question. Well, this goes back to like the shotgun versus sniper rifle approach. I like the sniper rifle approach, which is why I stopped using a dialer personally. I've been hand dialing.
That's a good one to ask him.
Yeah, I got rid of the dialer. But I think the main reason for me is just I was getting distracted. When you have the dialer running, like you just start looking at social media and email and all that. When I'm hand dialing, you have to focus on what you're doing.
Right.
So that helped. And then I also, if there's like 10 expireds, I first look at the price point and I go to the ones that are the price point I want to work. And I really try and hone in on those. I don't text at all because I think it's kind of a waste, but I will go back if I have a good conversation. I'll call midday in the afternoon that day. One other thing I do is I pull the withdrawals every day, the ones that get terminated, and I call those at the end of the day from the ones that came off the market today. This way I'm not waiting until the next day. I think I talked to a few of you guys about that, but that's been really, really good for me. And then weekends are always the best. Like Saturday morning I probably get 80% of the expired listings that I sign from calling on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Perfect.
That's a high number. Have you ever thought about calling, this is just a thought right now, expired rentals that came off the market or were on the market and seeing if they actually want to sell?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it probably hits kind of the same people that are for rent by owners. So that's why I don't. I think it's kind of a similar source, but I don't know. One might be better than the other. It's a good idea.
Okay. And Zach Purdy wants to know, what time on the weekends are you calling?
Saturday, I start around 8 usually, 8
Okay.
a.m. And it doesn't take that long. Like Saturday mornings, I usually call from 8 to 9. So it's like an hour at most, maybe 45 minutes.
Okay. And then are you doing anything on Sundays?
Yeah, if I don't have much going on Sundays, I'll call every now and then. Sunday afternoons also really good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, do you try to call the people who, like the one that you couldn't get a hold of? Do you call them back at all? Or do you just call the first time you don't get them, you just move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I don't, although I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just for me and where I am in my business, to spend time calling the same person over and over is not answering, doesn't usually work well. I think what does work well, we talked about this too, is calling at different times. So let's say I call a lead today at 9 a.m. and they don't answer, right? I think if you call that same lead tomorrow at 9 a.m., the chances of them answering is like almost zero, right? Because the way the math works. So what I do with a lead, if I get an actual lead, I'll call them in the morning. If they don't answer, I'll call them in an afternoon. If they don't answer, I'll call them on a weekend. And then I just throw them out if they don't answer one of those three. So I'd say the same thing with expireds is probably a good idea. I just wouldn't keep blasting at the same time every single day.
That's great. That's great advice.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nancy asked a question here also. She said, prior to writing your book, would you answer any objections in a Q&A format to put into your pre-listing package?
Yeah, I didn't really do that, but I would recommend that you do that. It's a good idea.
Cool.
And I guess the bigger thing is use a pre-listing package. Like most of the agents, if I really asked them, aren't actually using it every single time. It'll save you a ton of time if you do it.
Nice. And then I have a quick question. Basically, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes here, Dan. Appreciate your time on everything about accountability. Now, you kind of touched upon it when Rich asked the question about that. How much accountability? You're doing all this business now, right? How much accountability do you actually still have? I'm assuming not a lot because you're already doing a lot of business.
Yeah, it's harder. It's a harder challenge when you're further in the business, I think. Working with Mike is my highest level of accountability because he calls me every single day. So, and he's going to ask me every single day. I know he's going to ask me, how was your morning today? How many appointments did you set? How many appointments did you go on? So if I just, screw off and I don't do anything, I'm going to disappoint him. And for me, that's since I put Mike on such a high regard and pedestal, me disappointing him is the highest level of accountability for me. Outside of that, yeah, my prospecting, I have really strong external accountability, just like you guys do in your group. And then I have an accountability partner I meet every Sunday morning. We've been doing that we've been doing that a while, 5 years. We do a call every Sunday morning at 6 a.m. We go over our wins for the week, losses for the week, any fixes or adjustments that we need to make, and any ahas that we came across. And then we go over our personal development for the week and things that we've been working on. So that's another layer, I guess.
Nice.
Great. Listen, I appreciate it. I think we're going to do one more. I appreciate your time taking the day out and answering all these questions. The last question that we'll ask is, Nancy asked that, where do you store all this information? Do you use a CRM? Do you write it on a yellow pad or Excel spreadsheet? What do you do?
Yeah, I use Follow Up Boss, but if I'm completely honest, I think CRMs do more harm than good in a lot of cases. I think if you have a team, that's really where you need it, because you need visibility to leads and all of that people are working on. But I think if you're a small team or a solo agent, CRMs do more harm than good, because you just get too distracted. You're playing around. We get paid to talk to people, not organize leads, shuffle leads around, make sure it's in the right order. So I think a lot of people just get sucked into it a little bit too much, myself included.
Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate it. Emily and Dean, we all appreciate you taking your time out. Two final things is, if anybody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way? Yeah.
So the book's on Amazon. You can find it on there. Not that I'm doing this to get you guys to buy the book, because I don't make any money on it. Just so you know, I think I make 50 cents every time someone buys it. But yeah, if you look how to sell your luxury home on Amazon, it's on there. And then cell phone. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, of course, I'm here in Vegas, 702-758-6390. I'll send it in the chat so you guys have it. But
before, the last question is, what are 2 or 3 things that you want people to take away from the book when they're reading it from their perspective, so they can make sure they reach out to you and give you some, I don't want to say criticism, but, let you know that they read it.
An agent or a client?
Since we're all agents here, agents.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, it's straight from Mike and the things that I've learned from him, but it's mostly about what actually causes homes to sell. I think when people think about luxury homes, they think that the normal rules don't apply, like, oh, well, if I could overprice it, but if I do all this fancy marketing campaign, then it'll sell. It's like, no, that's like the opposite, So I think that's the whole idea with the book. And you guys know, if you've read it, that it really talks about the fundamentals, what causes homes to sell. And if you've sold a lot of homes, you know what they are. It's pricing it right, getting good professional photos and marketing and making sure it looks good, writing good descriptions that actually talk about features that aren't obvious things that you can see, but would actually bring value to clients, and basically using a more proactive approach rather than a passive approach. That's basically it.
That's
Awesome.
perfect.
Dan.
Sorry
Thank
for
you,
going
buddy.
10 minutes over. And
No problem.
thank you. And we'll talk soon, bro.
That's good,
Thank
guys.
you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.